Daniel straightened the stack of client files on his desk, fingers trembling with exhaustion. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, a harsh counterpoint to the quiet hum of the nearly empty office. The rest of the team had already left. Some, hours ago, leaving behind cold coffee cups and abandoned post-it notes. It was nearly 8. He glanced at the clock, debating whether to pack up. Then her voice, low and even, drifted across the open floor. "Daniel." He looked up too quickly. Olivia stood by her office door, tablet in hand, the faintest smile curving her lips. The sleeves of her white blouse were rolled to the elbow, dark hair pinned in a loose twist. The effortless kind of elegance that always disarmed him. "I was hoping you might stay a bit longer," she said, walking toward him. "The Morgan pitch needs final formatting, and the client moved the review up to tomorrow." Daniel swallowed the ache of fatigue. "Of course. I can help." "Good." Her smile deepened, more approval than gratitude. She turned on her, heel, beckoning him to follow. Daniel gathered his laptop and followed her into the conference room. Glass walls shimmered with reflections of the darkened city skyline. On the central screen, slides of revenue charts and glossy product images flickered. "I've been at this for hours," Olivia said, half to herself. She massaged her temple, then gestured for Daniel to sit beside her. Fresh eyes would help. They worked side by side, the faint tap of keys filling the room. Daniel focused hard on the words, though his awareness of Olivia beside him was constant, a hum under the surface. The subtle scent of her perfume, the deliberate calm in her voice. Between edits, they spoke, at first about fonts and phrasing, then about the project's weight. Olivia exhaled softly, fingers pausing on the keyboard. "Sometimes it feels like this job consumes everything," she said. "I used to think I'd have balance by now." Daniel hesitated. "You seem to handle it all." "That's the trick." Her gaze flicked to him. "Looking like you do." The confession left a thin crack in her polished veneer, a sliver of something human, vulnerable. It startled him and pulled him closer. She smiled again, this time with a different weight. "And you, Daniel? Do you ever wish you'd chosen something simpler?" He smiled faintly. "All the time. But I guess I like the challenge." "You do?" Her tone shifted, softer. "You've made quite an impression in a short time." Heat bloomed at the base of his neck. "I'm just trying to learn." "And you are." She reached across him, her hand grazing his wrist as she adjusted the screen angle. The touch was brief, accidental, or seemed so, but it lingered in his skin like a spark. Silence stretched between them, laden now. The screen's glow painted their faces in cool light. Outside, the city shimmered beyond the glass. "I should," Daniel began, but the words felt wrong. "Not yet," Olivia murmured. Her voice had dipped. "We're almost done." Minutes slipped by in quiet rhythm. Daniel edited one last slide, Olivia reviewing it closely. The air between them was charged now, each small movement sharpened, amplified. Finally, she closed her laptop with a gentle snap. "That's it." Daniel exhaled. "Good." Olivia didn't move to stand. Instead, she turned slightly toward him, elbow resting on the table, gaze holding his. "You've been very kind to help," she said softly. "Not everyone would have stayed." It wasn't a burden. His voice felt unfamiliar in his throat. "I wanted to." Her eyes searched his, the room shrinking around them. Then, with a quiet grace, she reached out, her fingers brushing the back of his hand, warm and deliberate. Daniel's breath caught. The gesture was nothing and everything. No words accompanied it, no clear signal, only the undeniable sense that a line had been crossed, however slightly. His heart pounded. He didn't know what to do next. Move away? Speak? But before he could choose, Olivia withdrew her hand and rose, smoothing her blouse. "It's late," she said, voice composed, once more. "You should get some rest." Daniel stood, unsteady. "Right, of course." She walked him to the glass door. Just before he stepped out, her voice stopped him again. "Daniel," she said, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Thank you, truly." He nodded, words failing him. Then the door clicked shut behind him, leaving him in the silent hallway. Pulse, racing, mind spinning with what had just passed, and what it might mean. The following morning, Daniel arrived earlier than usual. The hum of the city had barely stirred when he stepped into the building, his mind thick with images from the night before. Olivia's touch, the subtle shift in her tone, the way her eyes had lingered. Each moment played back in an endless loop, impossible to quiet. He had barely slept. Some part of him knew it had been nothing, a fleeting moment in an after-hours haze. But another part clung to it, convinced something deeper had passed between them. He had felt it. Surely she had too. The office buzzed with its usual rhythm. Phones rang, keyboards clattered, casual greetings floated in the air. Olivia emerged from her office mid-morning, composed, unreadable, her smile as crisp as ever. She greeted the team, then caught Daniel's eye for the briefest moment, a flicker so quick he questioned whether it had happened at all. They spoke nothing of the previous night. Hours crawled by under the weight of unsaid words. At lunch, as most of the team dispersed, Daniel remained at his desk, staring at the same email draft. The quiet tap of heels approached. He looked up. "Not hungry?" Olivia asked, voice light. "Not really." She hesitated, then smiled, faintly. "Me neither." A pause, charged, uncertain. "I could use a coffee, though," she added. "Join me?" Danielle nodded, pulse quickening. They left the office, walking 2 blocks to a tucked-away cafe Olivia seemed to know well. Inside, the space was warm and dim, wooden tables worn smooth by time. They ordered quietly and settled into a corner. Table, away from the scattered midday crowd. For a while, they spoke of safe things, projects, colleagues, weekend plans. But beneath it all, a different current pulsed, undeniable. Olivia cupped her coffee with both hands, gaze fixed on the swirling steam. "You know," she began softly, "it's strange. I spend so much time here, building this life, chasing goals. And yet," she trailed off, shaking her head, "lately, it feels hollow." Daniel studied her carefully, her usual armor seeming thinner in this space. She glanced at him, lips curving in a rueful smile. "I probably sound foolish." "No," he said, voice steady. "Not at all." She looked down, fingers tracing the rim of her cup. "I ended something recently. Someone I thought I'd build a future with." A breath unsteady. "Turns out, you can't always trust your instincts." Daniel's chest tightened. "I'm sorry." Olivia met his gaze. "You shouldn't be. It was overdue." "Still," her voice faltered. "Some nights are harder than others." Silence bloomed between them, thick with meaning. Daniel's heart thudded, each word weighing more than the last. "You deserve someone who sees you," he said quietly. "Someone who truly values you." She held his gaze then, longer, deeper than before. The air shifted. "For a young man," she murmured, "you speak with such certainty." He swallowed. "Some things are clear." A faint smile touched her lips, bittersweet. "Careful, Daniel. Words like that can change things." He leaned forward, unsure if courage or something else drove him. Maybe they should. For a beat, the world seemed to still. Then Olivia reached across the table, her fingers brushing, his with deliberate grace. The contact sent a rush through him, neither innocent nor casual. She didn't pull away. Daniel's breath caught. He could feel the tremble in her touch, the silent question it posed. His fingers curled instinctively around hers. For a long moment they remained that way. Two people suspended in a space between propriety and desire. Then Olivia exhaled, soft and trembling. She withdrew her hand slowly, gaze shadowed. We should head back. The walk to the office passed in silence, the charged energy between them undeniable. Back inside, they resumed their separate roles, emails, meetings, polite exchanges. Yet every glance, every brush of proximity, crackled with the memory of that touch. As the day waned, Daniel packed his things, hesitant. Before he could leave, Olivia appeared beside him. "Walk with me?" she asked quietly. Outside, dusk painted the streets in gold and gray. They strolled in near silence until Olivia stopped beneath an old street lamp. She turned to him, eyes shimmering. "I won't pretend last night, or today, meant nothing," she said softly. "But there are lines I can't cross. Not here. Not now." Daniel searched her face. "I understand," her voice faltered. "I don't know if you do." A pause. "I'm not ready to be who you think I am." Before he could respond, she touched his cheek lightly, one last lingering moment, then stepped back. "Good night, Daniel." She turned and disappeared into the shadows, leaving him standing beneath the dim light, heart aching with all that had been left unsaid. Daniel had barely slept. The night had replayed itself over and over in his mind. Olivia's voice, her touch, the way her eyes had seemed to linger. It wasn't the sort of moment that belonged to the orderly world of office protocol. And yet, it had happened. Now the weight of it clung to him. He arrived at the office early, hoping to catch some fleeting clarity in the quiet before the day began. But when Olivia walked in, graceful, polished, utterly composed, she offered him only a polite nod. No trace of last night flickered across her face. The tension that had crackled between them now hung heavier for being unspoken. Daniel kept to his tasks, fingers moving over the keyboard with mechanical precision. Questions circled in his head. Had he imagined the warmth in her gaze, the lingering touch, or was this simply Olivia's way of restoring the boundary between them, professional, impenetrable? Mid-morning, a notification pinged on his screen. A calendar invite, coffee break, 11 a.m., sent by Olivia. No message, no explanation, just a time and place. When he arrived at the small cafe across the street, she was already there, seated at a corner table with 2 cups between them. Her smile was small but real. "I thought we could use a break," she said as he sat down. "Yesterday was a long day." Daniel nodded, searching her expression for any clue. It was. For a few moments they spoke of trivial things. The weather, the latest client demands, how little sleep either had managed. Yet beneath the surface, something deeper pulsed. Olivia's fingers traced lazy circles along the rim of her cup. Her voice softened. "I probably shouldn't say this," she began, eyes flickering to his. "But it's been a while since I've felt seen." Daniel leaned in slightly, drawn closer by the weight of her words. "You deserve to be." She smiled, weary. "You say that so easily." "Because I mean it." A silence settled between them, dense, charged. Olivia looked away as if steeling herself. "I've made mistakes," she admitted. "Let people close who didn't deserve it. And now, I second-guess everything." Daniel swallowed, heart hammering. You can trust me. Her eyes met his then, searching. For a moment, the world seemed to narrow to just the two of them. Slowly, deliberately, she reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. The contact was feather-light but deliberate. Daniel froze, pulse quickening. He didn't pull away. Her voice dropped to a near whisper. This isn't easy. I can't afford complications. You're not a complication, Daniel said, voice tight with conviction. You're... She shook her head gently, silencing him. Don't. Her thumb traced a slow line across the back of his hand. Not yet. They sat in that fragile space where words mattered less than the weight of a touch. Finally, Olivia exhaled, withdrawing her hand with a reluctant grace. We should go, she said quietly. The walk back was steeped in tension. Every brush of her shoulder, every glance carried the ghost of that moment. Back at the office, they returned to their roles, polite, distant, as though the cafe had been another world entirely. Hours passed, heavy with unspoken questions. As the day waned, Daniel debated leaving, unsure whether to linger in hope or retreat with dignity. Just as he reached for his bag, Olivia appeared beside him, voice low. A word? He followed her to a quiet hallway near the exit. There, beneath the soft glow of recessed lights, she turned to face him fully. I'm not blind to what's happening, she said. But you need to understand. There are reasons I keep walls up. Daniel's throat tightened. I'm not asking you to tear them down overnight. A sad smile tugged at her lips. You don't have to. Just being near you makes them thinner. For a beat, neither spoke. Then Olivia reached up, fingers brushing lightly against his cheek. One tender, electric moment. Good night, Daniel, she whispered. Before he could respond, she stepped past him and disappeared into the stairwell, leaving him in the stillness of the hallway. The echo of her touch lingered long after she had gone. The days that followed blurred into a strange dance, one where every glance carried layered meaning, and every word risked tipping the fragile balance they had built. Daniel found himself caught between the world that existed before that late night and the one that had quietly unfolded since. In meetings, Olivia was the picture of composed authority. Yet between moments of formality, fleeting signs broke through, the brush of a hand when passing documents, a lingering look when their eyes met across the room. These gestures weren't imagined. They were deliberate. Daniel could feel the shift, sense the unspoken invitation beneath the polished veneer. And he wasn't immune. Every small interaction pulled him deeper, each moment adding to the quiet ache he carried through his days. It wasn't long before another late night arrived. The office had emptied after a long client presentation. Daniel stayed behind, driven, as much by unfinished work as by a quiet hope. When Olivia appeared at his desk just past 9, the look in her eyes made everything else fade. Still here? She asked, voice low. So are you. She smiled, tired yet knowing. Walk with me. They slipped out into the crisp night air. The streets were quiet, washed in pale streetlight. They walked in silence for blocks until Olivia stopped before a quiet hotel, a discreet place Daniel had passed countless times without notice. She hesitated by the entrance. I shouldn't ask this, she began, voice barely above a whisper. But I don't want to be alone tonight. Daniel's heart pounded, war raging beneath his ribs. He searched her face, finding vulnerability in her eyes. Every rational voice inside him screamed caution. But something deeper, a need, a longing, answered louder. I'll stay, he said. Inside the room, the tension fractured. Olivia moved first, her touch no longer tentative. Their lips met in a desperate, searching kiss. The hours that followed, unfolded in a blur of whispered names and hurried touches, both surrendering to the weight of all they had denied. In the dim hours of morning, Daniel lay awake beside her, heart raw. Olivia slept fitfully, brow furrowed even in rest. He watched her, the gravity of what they had done settling heavy in his chest. She stirred as dawn crept in. For a moment her expression softened, unguarded. But as her gaze met his, clarity flickered behind her eyes, and with it, distance. "This can't continue," she whispered, voice rough with sleep and regret. Daniel swallowed hard. "I know." But knowing didn't dull the ache. At the office, reality reasserted itself. Olivia greeted him with cool professionalism. No secret glances, no lingering touches. The silence between them grew sharp, unbearable. 2 days passed. On the third, Daniel was called to an emergency meeting by senior management. When he entered the boardroom, Olivia sat at the head of the table, eyes unreadable. The meeting was brief. A client had complained about mismanaged deadlines. Leadership was reviewing internal accountability. Though the issue wasn't directly tied to Daniel, a subtle undercurrent suggested otherwise. Afterward, Olivia pulled him aside. "We need to be careful," she said quietly, eyes flicking toward passing colleagues. "There's already too much attention." Daniel's breath caught. "Are you distancing yourself from me?" Her gaze hardened. "I'm protecting us and myself." The words landed like a blow. Before he could reply, she was gone. By week's end, Daniel noticed subtle changes. Projects he'd led were reassigned. Meetings he once attended now happened without him. Whispers followed in the hallways, tones too low to catch, glances too quick to confront. The shift was undeniable. Olivia had retreated completely. Worse, she had left him exposed. Late Friday, Daniel remained at his desk long after the others had gone. When Olivia passed, she paused for the first time in days. "I never meant to hurt you," she said, voice taut. "But I can't risk my career for a mistake." The word struck hard. Mistake. Daniel met her gaze, searching for the woman who had once held his hand in the dark, who had whispered his name with trembling need. But she was gone. Walls rebuilt, gaze cool and distant. He swallowed the lump rising in his throat. Understood. She hesitated, as if to say more, but in the end she turned and walked away, leaving Daniel alone beneath the sterile hum of the office lights. Heart heavy, with betrayal and a new bitter understanding of the cost of their fragile moment.